Good afternoon. So I got to be honest, a couple of weeks ago when they reached out to me and said, hey, would you speak at the Good Leader Conference? I was very humbled, and also what I'm going to talk about today is crisis and stress, and immediately I got stressed out. That's no joke. So I was like, okay, is this the right crowd? Am I the right person to speak in front of it? And I guess they look at me and realize that 10 or 12 years ago I had hair, and now with all the stress I have none. And what little I have is coming out. So my name is Stuart Blasingame. I am the fire chief for Prosper Fire Rescue. I actually started my career here in Frisco, where I served for about 5 years. That's back when Frisco was about 14,000 people. I was here about 5 years. I went to Prosper Fire Rescue, and I'm about to start my 23rd year there in Prosper. So I'm blessed to be here to talk to you about leadership during crisis or stress today. And I want to start off by sharing just a little bit about my background. Yes, I've been there almost 27 years total in the fire service. I am a proud member of Hope Fellowship and attend the Prosper campus. And so any Prosper people here? There we go. So I'm married. I'm married to a registered nurse. Firefighters are mostly either married to nurses, because that's who they see a lot, or school teachers. I don't know why. I guess to balance us out good. So I do have two boys. I have a son that's 23 years of age that lives in Minneapolis, although I'm hopeful he's about to come home. He does not like Minneapolis, which does not surprise his dad. And I have a 19-year-old that just is a freshman, just started at the University of Arkansas. So woo pig. I have to do that because that's where my money goes. So I do want to tell you, I don't consider myself an expert. I'm an expert on fire service. I'm an expert on putting out fires and EMS and things like that. When it comes to stress and crisis, we have to deal with it every day. And so when I was asked to speak, I had to think about an incident in my career to where I had both of those, and what was the hardest for me to continue to still do my job. It's not easy to talk about, and I've had several. As you can imagine, being in our career, we see a lot. But it was February 19th in 2021, so it was about 3.5 years ago now. I was at home, and as I often did, I listened to the radio, and it was Friday evening. A structure fire call came out. It was actually in Salina, so not even in our district, but Salina. Well, being small agencies, anytime we go, or anytime they have a fire, we have to go to their fire. A lot of times when we have big fires, they have to come to us as well. We work every day with McKinney and Frisco and Little Elm and Salina, so it's almost every day. So I decided, hey, this sounds like a really big working fire, so I'm going to it, right? So I get en route, and all of a sudden something comes across the radio that says it's possible that you have a deceased inside the residence. And that I heard from the first reports from the engines that got there that it was pretty serious and that the fire was roaring. So as we got there more and more, and I'm still going, I'm not but about 7 or 8 minutes maybe at max from my house in Prosper at the time to where this residence was. More and more information started coming out. So when I got there, Salina was already there. They had command, and Salina came up and said, I walked up to the command post and said, what can I do to help you? He said, Chief, can you take operations? And what operations is in the fire service is now you're going to be in charge of the fire. You're in charge of whatever's going on in that house. It's your job to help get it out. I request resources and stuff from command. I then orchestrate how to get everything put out. So then I'm quickly told, hey, we've got a husband that evidently has shot his wife, and probably we believe he may have killed his kids also. So almost immediately, to be honest with you, I'm pretty upset. I'm mad, you know. I'd been to a lot of deaths before. I'd seen a lot of things in my life. I've seen a lot of car wrecks where people didn't make it. But I had never been on one that there was a murder involved in it. So I went in and I started doing everything. When I come out, almost immediately, they brought a young girl out that wound up being 14 years of age. And we knew that there was nothing we could do for her. We had to put a piece of plastic down on the side of the road or on the by the tree in their front yard and lay her there, cover her up. There was snow on the ground. Roof is all involved. Bedrooms are involved. Smoke's pouring out of the front door. I got multiple crews inside. I've got crews in the backyard. I got crews. It's a neighborhood where there's literally about 10 or 15 feet between the houses, and we're worried about houses catching next door. So I'm still having to do my job, but now I'm getting angry. I'm seeing this poor little girl over here that her killed by the one person that's supposed to be her protector. So then they said, hey, we believe there's more in the house. And so I'm really getting real upset. But I know I've got my job to do, and so I had to overcome it. So I'm still directing resources. A few minutes later, they came out to us and said, we found someone else. So I'm at the front door. Firefighters bring him out, and I look, and it's a young boy. He wound up being 13 years of age. I had to be the one to look at him. The guys are all masked up, smoke pouring out the front. I'm like, nothing we can do. Go put her by her sister. We later found out that the mother was in the closet, and he had killed her as well. On top of that, he had killed 3 dogs that he had in the house and a cat. So anything that was in the house, he did. Then he called 911, and he said that, hey, I just killed my family, and I set my house on fire. And so as you can imagine, it's a pretty chaotic scene. Everybody's still trying to grasp what's going on here. Police took him into custody, but I can see him in a car, not much further from probably the corner of the room. And don't think for a second that I didn't want to go over there. I was infuriated. I was so mad, but we still had our job to do. And luckily, he's been sentenced to life in prison for the rest of his life. And it was really hard to do that and then know that I had a job to do. But I tell that because what this is about stress, and it was, about stress, and it's also about different crises. And so I want to tell you, as I'm very transparent, I'm a different man today, I believe, than what I was then. At the time, we had 2 of our chaplains that were actually on scene of the fire that came. They heard and they came. And at the end of the fire, once we had everything, all the fire was out, the children were in the front yard still. When we got cleared to leave, the chaplains rode home with me. Sorry, I have not talked about that since for about 3.5 years. So we left. Don't do like I did. I told the chaplains on the way home, I said, let me just tell you something. I know where I'm going to be tomorrow night. So I'm going to be at the Gin. It's a local bar in Prosper. And I didn't drive, but I did exactly what I told them I was going to do. The next night I was at the Gin. And I was about 16 beers in, and that's not an exaggeration. And it hit me. Boom. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. This man chased his kids down. They found his daughter in a stairwell face down, knowing she was running. They found the young boy who had a very functional form of autism. He was in the far corner of the second floor. He ran as far away from his daddy as he could get before his daddy took his life. So I told him, I said, that's where I'm going to be. I don't want to be messed with. That's how I wanted to deal with it. Don't deal with it that way. I'm very blessed to have friends in the service and to have friends that are here in this room and with Hope Fellowship. So I will tell you today, one of my best friends, the 2 chaplains that we had there, excuse me, my nerves are getting to me. Varela, stand up. So Isaac was one of them. Mike Martin, would you stand up in the back? He's in the very back. So afterwards, Mike turned out to be one of my best friends, and he was actually one of my saviors. And I will tell you what, when you think that you don't have anywhere else to turn, I was babbling, crying. I mean, I was bawling. I was so upset, and all I could imagine is the horror that these kids faced. 12:45 at night, you want to talk about Hope Fellowship, and you want to talk about their people that work here and do things. I called Mike Martin at 12:45 in the morning because he told me, hey, Stu, if you need me, you call me. I called him at 12:45. Second ring, he answered. I don't remember what all got said. I know we were on the phone for probably 45 minutes to an hour, and he talked me off that ledge because I was hurting. First time ever in my career that I actually felt like I overflowed, and I don't know what I would do without that man standing back there for getting me off of it, because my heart hurt. I literally did not want to move forward. It just hurt me so bad. Mike's been one of my best friends. He is my best friend, and like I said, I can't say enough about Hope Fellowship. If you need something, Hope Fellowship's going to be there for you. So, talk a little bit about crisis. That's the serious part. But in a leadership context, it's an unexpected event that poses a significant threat requiring immediate and effective action. So there are countless examples of crisis in the fire service. For us, it's going to be things like building fires, house fires, things that I just talked about. It's going to be anything from personnel issues. I've got 80 personnel in our fire department, and if you've got anywhere, you can have 2 personnel or you can have 80 personnel or 800, you're going to have personnel issues. Natural disasters, we just had one that wasn't too far from us that went through Salina. I now live in Gunner. It was supposed to come right for us, and it switched right before it got there. It wound up hitting 4 Frisco firefighters' homes, destroying them here, along with the bomb squad tech that works for Frisco. Talk about stress and a crisis. Also major accidents. We work with Frisco on State Highway 380. It's not uncommon for us to be there 3 or 4 times a day at least. That's just on the one major roadway that we see a lot of major accidents. And as I told you a minute ago, we have a lot of death and EMS life and death medical situations that we have. But in the corporate world, there's so many. I've listed only a few here, but there's so many. I'm sure nobody in this room right now, if you're a business owner or work for a business, that you're worried about a recession, right? None of you? But show of hands, anybody? Yeah. So most everyone is. You got internal conflicts. So a lot of times you don't have employees that are getting along and things are going right. You got staff separations where, especially when you've got somebody that you trust and you know and they've been with you for a long time and they have the knowledge, they have the clientele, they're the face of it, and then it separates. That can cause a lot of stress and a crisis for your organization. Computer failures, we don't worry about that, do we? Everything we have, whether it's in a local server or whether it's in the cloud, I still don't get that, but I know it does YouTube also. So, and then we have to worry about hackers, which is a shame, but it is what we have to worry about in ransomware. Somebody buys it or takes it offline and says, hey, give me $100,000, I'll give you back your business. Or sometimes in some corporations, it's millions of dollars. So I want to talk a little bit about stress. And it's a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstance. It's the body's natural reaction to a perceived threat. It's what kicks in when firefighters hear that alarm. Immediately that kicks in with us when a sudden problem demands our immediate attention. But while a certain level of stress can sharpen our focus and drive us to act, too much stress or stress over a prolonged period can cloud our judgment and take a toll on our well-being. So next I want to talk about the physiological and psychological effects of stress, often dubbed the silent disruptor, also known as the killer. Anybody ever heard stress kills? Well, a lot of people go, well, how does it really kill? Well, I'll tell you in a second how it does. So stress can be caused, especially in the corporate world, but looming work deadlines, a juggling act between personal and professional responsibilities, or even global events that we have no control over whatsoever. The nature of stress is complex, therefore understanding and managing stress is crucial part of enhancing our mental health. Let's discuss the physiological effects of how stress affects the body. So, apologize on one here, and I think I went just one too far here. So, increased adrenaline. So, that's our fight or flight. Everybody heard of fight or flight? That's what happens when something happens and you decide you either got to run or you got to fight. And so our body's triggered with a surge of energy, just all of a sudden preparing the body for immediate action, no matter what that is. The second point that we have is we have heightened alertness. Our senses become sharper, our focus intensifies, And then we also have potential for decision making under duress. Everybody knows the best decisions you make are going to be the ones that you're under pressure, right? So a lot of times, though, we have to make those quick decisions, especially in our world. We don't have a chance. We don't have time to sit there and put it on paper and figure out which way is the best way to go. Some of you in the corporate world or in your line of work may have something very similar where you don't have time. You've got to make a decision right now and hope that you've made the best decision. It also impacts the mind. We can feel anxious, and chronic stress can lead to a persistent anxiety and unease. Is anybody in here, if you're a leader or you've been a business owner or a manager or anything else, have you ever felt anxious? All of us at some point have that, and some of us feel it every day. Depression is another thing that it really can take a toll on you. Prolonged stress is going to contribute to that depression, and it affects our overall mood. I always tell the people that come into work with us that, hey, you can have a bad day. We're all entitled to bad days. Sometimes we're entitled to bad weeks. When you start having bad months or several months, it's when you really need to start looking to try to get some help. Headaches. Listen, I keep ibuprofen in business. So we have it in the truck, in the car, in my desk, in my fire department vehicle. And when I run out, my assistant chief next door's got it, and I know exactly where he keeps it. Stress causes a lot of people to have trouble sleeping. I can tell you that just several nights a month, depending upon what's going on, I struggle. You know, I have to take something to try to help me go to sleep. And you have to be careful with that because you got to make sure it's not habit forming and that it's going to cause something that you're going to regret later on in life. You don't want to get addicted to it. And that was my main concern. I found myself with 2 or 3 hours sleep, and I could not sleep. My mind would never turn off. It's what I had to do tomorrow and everything else. Finally went and got some help and said, what can you give me where I can go to sleep, but then in 6 months I'm not having checked myself into rehab? And there are things that can do that and will help you. And then your long-term health implications like heart disease. So what I was talking a minute ago about the killer, we have, anytime you have stress and crisis going on, you have high cortisol levels that go through your cardiovascular system. And that's why they call that the killer, is because that happens. You're constantly dealing with it. People have heart attacks, people have strokes, people have other things that come off because of stress and also because of different crises that happens. So it weakens our immune system and it compromises our immune function, making the body more susceptible to illness. So as we look at leadership in crisis, it's important to stay calm under pressure. That's not always easy to do, and I get it. Sometimes that means, you have to control your breathing. You got to say, hey, you know what? I got to take a deep breath. You also have to realize that a lot of times you didn't start the crisis. Something may have happened, and we have to tell our folks when things are getting really excited, okay, calm down. Same thing we have to do with our dispatchers when we're training them. When they first get people in there, every crisis is their crisis. And it has to be, but we also have to know that getting worked up and not being able to think it through is not a benefit to any of us. Take it out, carve it down into small chunks that you can deal with. Things that hey, if I start here, I can change this, and then I can add these building blocks onto it after that, right? To where we can figure the rest of it out. So you just put it in manageable tasks for you and address one issue at a time instead of getting overwhelmed by the bigger picture. So we also have to make quick decisions in a crisis, and there's often no time at all for us to go back and say, okay, where's my playbook on this? Like a coach, when they say, hey, let's check this out. What are we going to do? And we're going to put it all there. You don't have time for that. But you need to make quick, informed decisions, and sometimes you only have partial or limited information. And with that information, you have to decide on a course of action, and then you have to act. But equally important is trusting in your intuition. Trust your years of experience, and if it's not working as you envision, you can always change your direction to get to the outcome you desire. Just because you start down one path, a lot of us can turn right in a car, right? And we know where we're going, especially if you're a man, you know where you're going. So we don't need your help, ladies. We got this. And once we realize we're going the wrong way, we can turn around, we can go the other way. And then we'll tell you, I know where I was going. I was just seeing if you knew I knew where I was going. So communication can make or break a crisis response. In the heat of the moment, clear, concise instructions are vital. And in our department, we develop communication protocols that everyone understands. We use standardized terminology. All of our language is common. We use checklists to make sure that we're not missing anything. You can do the same in the corporate world. You can go through there and say, hey, if something happens, this is what we have to do. For instance, we're going through a scenario now that if we had a cyber attack or we lost our computers, how are we going to function as a fire department? How are we going to function as a police department? How's the dispatchers going to do it? Do we have paper copies? Because nobody uses paper anymore, right? Everything we have is digital. We don't have anything paper. We've got to make sure, though, in a drawer, somewhere we can quickly get it out, we've got that in case that happens, because we don't have time to figure it out then. And you may not have that time in your business either. So also want to talk about team dynamics. A crisis is no time at all for a one-person show, unless you're a one-person company. Trusting your team and delegating those responsibilities can be the key to your success. For example, on multiple fires or emergency situations, no matter, you know what they call the chief? So they'll tell you, you know what chaos stands for? Chief has arrived on scene. So when we get there, we have to trust in the people that we've trained and that know the business as well as we do. We have to say, hey, your job is to do this. And then I have to trust that you can go over there and get that done. I'm sure if you own a business, you have to do the same with some of your people. You should not have to constantly go back behind someone to make sure they did the job right if you've got the right team in place. So they can't afford to wait on every detail to come from a chief officer when we have emergency situations. And that's always been crucial to our success. So after the crisis, so we always do what's called a debriefing, and you can do the same thing in your company when something goes wrong or you're struggling. And always when you have a bad situation, get your people together, say, hey, what went right here? What happened, first of all? How did we get here today? And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what went well? What did we do that's right? That if we had to do this again, that's exactly the way we could do it. And then what could we do better the next time if this happened? And I will tell you that, in my opinion, that is never a time to have a debriefing that's like a let me tell you what you did wrong session. If you can, always avoid being critical of your team. Instead, focus on learning from any mistakes to make your organization better. So, the aftermath of a crisis can be just as challenging as the crisis itself. Supporting your team's mental health is so important. As a leader, I have to ensure that every one of my people has access to counseling if they need it. And that a lot of times isn't a professional counselor. Well, it kind of is. It's our chaplains that we have to go to sometimes, and we have to say, hey, we really need you. We have somebody, a child death. We had one, we have those occasionally. We had one last year that messed up a lot of firefighters and messed up a lot of police officers, and didn't help our dispatcher either. She struggled. Well, that night, myself and our chaplains at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night are visiting stations and going to check on our dispatcher to make sure they're okay. And we're following up afterwards to make sure that they need help. You may have to do that same thing with people that you work for. And if you don't, again, like I said, if you don't have the means to say, hey, I've got a counselor that's going to come in or somebody that you can go talk to, contact whoever you're closest with at Hope Fellowship. And if you don't know who that is, go to the campus pastor and say, hey, I need help. They're going to find help for you. They're going to make sure that you get what help you need, because we don't need anybody else committing suicide because they couldn't find help or was too scared to go out and ask somebody for that help. So it demands calm under pressure, decisive action, clear communication, above all, trust in your team. And after the dust settles, it's about learning from the experience, ensuring everyone has the support that they need to recover and grow. As we wrap up, I want to end this. A crisis is not just a test of your leadership. It's an opportunity to demonstrate courage, resilience, and the ability to bring out the best in yourself and your team. Stress is an inevitable part of our life, but how we handle stress is up to us. That is within our control. The only reliable and lasting way to overcome stress is through our Lord Jesus Christ. That's an area, I'm going to be honest, I go to church every Sunday. I'm a believer, thank God. But I'm still struggling with that. I'm still struggling to say, God, take this off my heart. Take this off me. I say it. And I know he's doing it, because I'm going to tell you now, some of the things that we've seen, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here right now. Too frequently I have to remind myself that very same thing. Trusting God, give it to him when you know that you've done all you can, that I've done my best, my team's done their best, and we need to let go of what we cannot control and give it to God. In my research on stress and crisis, I came across several Bible verses. If you look that up, it's amazing. If you just type in and do a Google search, which I didn't know YouTube was owned by Google, but it is. That was great information. And I love ChatGPT. Woo, council meetings, that is wonderful. So, but one of my favorite verses that is on there is Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guide your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. With that, I want to again thank you for letting me share a little bit about myself and my experiences with leading through crisis and stressful situations. If you didn't learn anything else, remember that we are not perfect. There was only one. And I got news for you. No matter how good you think you are, you're not. And when you're feeling overwhelmed, don't forget to lean on the grace of God. He will get you through the storm. I hope this information this afternoon was beneficial to all of you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.